As the sun set low in the sky, Max and Sarah were deep into the third day of their road trip, winding through remote backcountry roads with barely another car in sight. They'd left the city to escape the stress of daily life, craving something new and unknown. But the last few hours had felt endless as they wound through forest after forest, isolated in a realm that felt more and more removed from civilization. Just as they were beginning to lose hope of finding a place to sleep, Sarah spotted a sign. The isolated hotel, vacancy. The hotel was impressive but unsettling, towering darkly against the twilight sky. It looked like a place untouched by time, an old-world relic in the middle of nowhere. As they pulled up, they noticed the sign had a second line below the vacancy. Guests must check in before dark. Max chuckled nervously as he checked his watch. They were just on time. Inside, they were greeted by a tall, serious man who introduced himself simply as the manager. He handed them an old-fashioned key with a brass room number. As they began to turn away, he paused, leaning forward with a serious expression. "Do not open your window after dark," he said, his voice almost a whisper, as though he feared something might overhear him. Max laughed it off, but Sarah felt a chill. The man's intense eyes didn't waver until they nodded in understanding. As they made their way to their room, they noticed how the whole hotel felt a bit too quiet. Their footsteps echoed as if the place was holding its breath. They entered their room, a cozy but outdated suite with heavy drapes and a large window overlooking the dense woods beyond. The air felt stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. As they settled in, Max cracked open the window to let in some fresh air. They could see the faint light of the moon, casting pale beams across the trees below. But in their tired state, they forgot the warning, left the window ajar, and went to sleep. Hours later, Sarah stirred in bed. A strange feeling pulled her from sleep, an itch, a sense that something wasn't right. She glanced at the window and froze. There, just beyond the glass, something was staring at her. The shape was barely visible, half cloaked in shadow, but its outline seemed almost wrong. It was too still, yet its presence was overwhelming, filling the room with a sense of something ancient and predatory. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she realized, whatever it was, it knew they were there. She reached for Max, trying to wake him as quietly as possible. He stirred, grumbling, until he noticed her wide eyes and followed her gaze to the window. When he saw it, his face went pale. Together, they moved slowly, trying not to make a sound, but then, click, the window shifted open another inch. It was as if the thing had been waiting for an invitation. Shadows pooled around the frame as a soft rustling sound began, something shifting just beyond their sight. Then, slowly, something began to crawl into the room, a shape that defied the form of any creature they knew. It was long, twisted, almost like shadows given life, moving with unnatural silence toward them. Panicked, Max grabbed the lamp and turned it on, casting a pool of light into the room. The creature recoiled, retreating toward the window, but it didn't leave. It lingered just beyond the light's reach, watching, waiting. The night felt endless as they sat, clutching each other, too afraid to move. Every time they glanced toward the window, they saw it there, motionless, waiting, as if studying them. They tried to wait for dawn, but fatigue weighed on their eyelids, and eventually, despite their fear, they drifted into a shallow, haunted sleep. When morning finally came, they awoke to bright light streaming through the window. The eerie calm of the room felt almost like a relief. They quickly packed their things, avoiding the window as they threw on their coats and rushed down the hallway. The manager was waiting for them, silent, as though he'd known what had happened. Without a word, he took the key from them and nodded, a slight, almost pitying look in his eyes. They left without looking back, their hearts still pounding, feeling the weight of something unseen still watching. As they drove away, silence hung heavy between them. Though they'd escaped the hotel, they both felt changed, marked by whatever had visited them. They tried to push it from their minds, but as they drove further, a sinking feeling crept back into their thoughts. Even miles away, they could still feel it, a sense that somewhere, just beyond the trees, something was still watching and waiting.